This is Troy, your host. We are live and recording.
Troy, thank you very much for that. Welcome, everybody. We're going to begin with a moment of silence. Normally, our invocation is met with a pastor providing a brief prayer. I will spare you me praying, and we'll just have a moment of silence. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Today, before we call this meeting to order, we would like to do an employee recognition. I'd like to call up Cody Winslow from the Clerk and Recorder's Office to provide a brief comment to recognize Sherry Davis for her 25 years of outstanding service to Douglas County in the Recording, Elections, and Motor Vehicle Division.
Microphone? Okay. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come before the board today and the public, and just to recognize 25 years of excellent service by Ms. Sherry Davis. Goodness. I'm not going to take up too much time because both Merlin and one of our former clerks, Carol Murray, would like to say a few words. I will say that Sherry has taught me a lot. I came in here from a different sector, and I've learned from her example and her running of all three divisions of our office. And her leadership is unmatched, and so we are very fortunate to have her.
Cody, thank you very much. Clerk Klotz.
The clerk's office, I think I was a conglomerate like GE. GE makes refrigerators, and they make aircraft engines, and they have a finance division. Clerk's office is kind of like that. We've got elections, which everybody's heard about. We've got recording. We've got motor vehicle. We've got passports. We've got driver's license, and clerk to the Board of County Commissioners. It's a very broad role to manage that. Sherry, on the other hand, has been in the trenches. She started in recording, did the first conversion to digital in the state. She then moved over to elections and went through the transition to the all mail-out ballot and got that mastered and working right. And then we had a vacancy in motor vehicle management. We posted it for 30 days, hoping to get candidates from all over the state to apply for it. And on a Thursday afternoon, Sherry walked in with her head down, and I'm thinking, oh, crap. She's going to resign. And she very sheepishly said, I'm getting tired in elections. Would you mind if I applied for this position? Cody and I were doing cartwheels. What she didn't know in making that statement was that the Department of Revenue was about to unleash a new drive system on us. This was the ultimate fiasco because Hickenlooper decided he wanted up before he left office. But there were no reports. How could you do daily balances without any reports? And he brought it up without any reports. And it took months before we had reports we could actually balance too well. And she lived through that, survived it all. I would hope, since she has had all that detail, knows all of the intricacies of all those divisions, I would hope that her future is focused on legislation that impacts those and benefits not just Douglas County, but the entire state. Educationally and certificate-wise, I've got to read this list. Sarah, the Certified Elections Registration Administration, that's a national thing. Colorado Secretary of State Election Certification First Class. Leadership Douglas County Innovation League, Douglas County Leadership Academy. Sherry's been great. She's been my mentor, if you would. And I really appreciate this job she's done, and the county should appreciate what she brought for us. Carol?
Thank you, Clerk Klotz. Welcome.
Commissioners.
Hello.
Carol Murray, former clerk and recorder. I was the one who eventually elevated Sherry into the head of that division, and in that process I learned that the taxpayers really got their money's worth with this particular employee. She's one of the best employees I've ever had, and I've had a lot. She's intelligent, she's creative. You present her with a problem, you can visually see everything going on in her head. It shows on her face. She's a hard worker. She's got an incredible work ethic. I mean, the county is blessed to have this woman as part of their crew. You know, a lot of people talk about government workers. You know, I've been involved in government, and there are a lot of good workers, but with Sherry Davis, you've got the best. So congratulations, and thank you for your service.
Carol, thank you for those comments. Sherry.
My name is Sherry Davis, and I am the Deputy of Motor Vehicles, and I want to thank the board for allowing us to speak today in this, to recognize my 25 years of service. There have been so many changes that have occurred over the 25 years, and I feel like I've been blessed because all the leaders that have been at Douglas County have recognized and given me opportunities to advance and showcase some of those skills. So I feel honored and blessed, and I appreciate everything Douglas County has to offer. So thank you so much.
Sherry, thank you for those comments. And before you go, I know the commissioners would like to acknowledge you as well.
So Sherry, congratulations, 25 years, wow. So, you know, lots of people get upset about license plates. And so they reach out to the commissioner wanting to complain. And so I have reached out to you numerous times, and you always get back to me with a kind answer, and I've never had anybody call me back and say that didn't work. So thank you for everything you've done to help me be successful. On a couple of personal notes. I remember having lunch with you one time and asking you, how did you get involved in this kind of work? And as I recall, you started in Elbert County.
That's correct.
And you might have been like a receptionist or a front clerk, and somebody came in with a problem, and you told them where to go for help. And they came back and they were shaking their head because they didn't get their problem solved. And you told that person, I'll help you. And you did not quit until you got that problem solved. And so that story has always reminded me of who Sherry Davis is. I think your middle name is customer service. and so I just want to thank you. And then on another personal note, having a granddaughter who means the world to me, I just wanted to tell you how so many people look at you and see a woman of strength and love and courage. And I think I know where your granddaughter gets her moral fiber to stand up and say to doctors, don't tell me that because it's not true. So thank you for everything you've done for the citizens of Douglas County.
Thank you.
Commissioner Teal.
Well, it'll be really good to see your name on the November ballot as the next Douglas County Clerk and Recorder. If there's anybody who has ever earned the job, and boy, I don't tell Judy Crenshaw that I said this, or Carol either. But if there's ever anyone that has earned their way to that position, it's absolutely you. The experience you're going to bring, I'll hold off saying welcome to elected office until we get that final approval from the good people of Douglas County. But Sherry, it's going to be great having you as a partner up here. I am sure the people of Douglas County will look at your credentials, look at your experience, hopefully tune into everything said about you here today, and it'll be good to have you at the meetings with the elected officials here in Douglas County.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Teal. And I know on behalf of the county, having elected leadership with your degree of acumen, experience, dedication to all those you serve is really welcomed and appreciated. So to you, all of your friends your coworkers and colleagues that are here to celebrate you. We just say congratulations on a quarter of a century. That truly is a lifetime here, and I know you're representing a new class of leaders to come in. And I say that with all due respect to wonderful leadership from your predecessor, Merlin Klotz, and all those that serve in the clerk's office. We really could not do this work without you. So thank you very much. Let's all rise and applaud Sherry. Thank you very much. And with that, I will call our business meeting to order. If you'll all continue to stay risen and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Attorney Ingalls, do we have certification of the agenda today?
We do, Mr. Chair. My office has reviewed all items on today's agenda, and they all meet legal approval. For the board's information, items 3O and 3P are being pulled off the agenda and do not need to be heard today.
Thank you, Mr. Ingalls. Do any commissioners have disclosures for any item on today's agenda?
I do not.
No, sir.
And I have none. With that, we'll move to item 2, which is citizen comment and organization comments. At this time, you are welcome to comment about any topic other than what is scheduled on today's regular agenda. You will be prompted to comment on those items at the appropriate time. This is an opportunity to share your thoughts and ideas with us, the Board of County Commissioners. If you would just state your name and where you're from prior to making those comments, you will have up to 3 minutes to make those comments. Commissioner comments, if any, will follow all citizen comment. Are there any citizen comments in the room today? Okay, I see a lot of wonderful, familiar faces in the room, but no citizen comment. Yes, sir, please. You know, that is not on the agenda for the business meeting right now. We are having a special meeting today at 4, and we would certainly invite you to comment at that time. Thank you, sir. Any other citizen comment? Troy, do we have any citizen comment online?
Thank you, Commissioner. I have no online comment.
Okay, and with that, I will close citizen comment. With that, we'll move on to item 3, which is our consent agenda. And let me just see if there's anybody in the room or online that wanted to comment on today's consent agenda. Any items from our consent agenda?
No online comment, sir.
Okay, and with that, I'll close citizen comment on the consent agenda and bring it back to the board for any further discussion and or a motion.
I have a motion to approve the requests in all items A through N and Q through R of the consent agenda. O and P have been pulled.
Second.
So there's a first and second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries 3-0. With that, we'll move from item 3 to item 4, which is our regular agenda, beginning with item 4A, a resolution describing a proposal to reestablish Douglas County's legal authority to provide advanced services, high-speed internet, cable television services, and or telecommunications services in partnering with public or private sector providers, calling an election on November 8th, 2022 for the consideration of such proposal, and setting the ballot title and ballot question for the election. Holly Carroll presenting for staff. Hi, Holly.
Hi. Good afternoon, Commissioners. In order to compete in today's economy, communities across the country have become increasingly dependent on internet access, and especially high-capacity broadband access. In the modern world, the availability of broadband has become a necessity for quality of life and desirability of a community, providing residents access to things like online education, telemedicine, remote working, social connections, and home-based businesses and rural businesses. Broadband has become so critical that many now regard it as a basic infrastructure need on par with roads, water systems, and electricity. Over the years, county staff have heard many pleas for assistance with obtaining improved broadband service. As the internet became a critical fourth utility, citizen outcry for adequate access increased, and some stated that they were considering relocating because of it. More often than not, these areas are sparsely populated, are large lots, and in areas where the topography makes expanding service difficult and expensive for telecommunication providers. Deploying infrastructure to these communities is not cost-effective. Therefore, providers are unable or unwilling to connect these areas, leaving them at a distinct disadvantage from their more urbanized neighbors. Like most communities, with the arrival of COVID-19, these conditions were exacerbated. Even some suburban locales in our jurisdiction were crippled by lack of adequate internet. However, rural areas were disproportionately affected. Numerous communities across Douglas County still lack adequate internet connectivity, and these conditions still exist. Local governments historically have not been directly involved in the delivery of retail communication services. However, the increasing demand for adequate, reliable, high-speed residential broadband service has forced many elected officials to re-examine their role in the provision of broadband. In the past 15 years, a growing number of local governments have started looking at investing public dollars in broadband infrastructure improvements, usually fiber optic cable, in order to attract internet providers and enhance economic development efforts and residential access. One of the biggest impediments to local governments playing any role in enhancing broadband infrastructure is a law passed in 2005, Senate Bill 152. SB 152 prohibits most uses of municipal or county money for broadband infrastructure without first going to a vote of the people. This includes the inability to receive and allocate grant funds or partner to leverage other funding sources at a time when unprecedented opportunities are available to local governments. Last fall, with ARPA allocation decisions on the horizon, the Board of County Commissioners funded a broadband study. A survey was conducted and local speed test data was collected, then overlaid with state data in order to paint a more accurate picture of gaps in local broadband access. After careful consideration, the board expressed interest in advancing partnerships in order to address targeted service areas, however, has been unable to engage in efforts due to the constraints of SB 152. To even be eligible for the upcoming state and federal funding and grant opportunities, it's a necessity that local governments pursue a 152 opt-out. The hurdles put in place by this statute are not insurmountable. Since the bill's passage, over 140 municipalities and counties have placed measures on the ballot to override the prohibitions of Senate Bill 152. These measures have passed handily in all jurisdictions except for one since 2009. To that end, this resolution is being proposed to place a question on the November ballot that requires approval from voters to reestablish the county's authority to invest public funds in broadband improvements. Should this resolution be approved and the initiative pass this fall, the county will not be obligated in any way to expend funds or apply for grants, but merely provides the ability to do so. At the board's direction, this resolution and ballot question is worded to be clear that the county does not intend to compete with the private sector and become a direct service provider, but rather to participate in, facilitate, or partner with third parties to improve broadband service. At this time, I'm available for any questions that the board may have.
Holly, thank you for that presentation. Any questions for staff?
I have none.
No, sir.
Okay, and with that, I will open it up for citizen comment on this item 4A. Is there any citizen comment either in the room or online with regard to this item 4A on the agenda?
Commissioner, I have no online comment.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for any further discussion and/or a motion.
Would you like to make any comments? So I'll go ahead and make a few comments. This, the best part about this decision here is, number one, we're just putting a question on the ballot. It's still going to be the decision of the people of Douglas County to move forward with it or not. The second best thing about this is really found in the very first phrase of that first sentence that you see up on the screen right now. Nobody's actually lying this time when they say without increasing taxes. This genuinely, there is absolutely no intent to increase taxes in putting this on the ballot and in proceeding forward with it. It is the full intention, based on all the discussions that the three of us have had together, to make sure that we're actually leveraging state and federal grants that are coming down to Douglas County specifically for the purposes of increasing broadband. You should not expect to see a job application posted for a director of broadband for the new broadband department here in Douglas County. We have no intention of doing that. As a matter of fact, I feel, based on the discussions we've had, particularly glad, having spent 20 years of my professional career in the high-tech industry, to note that we have no intention to actually own any infrastructure. You know, I think we all remember a time, actually looking around the room right now, I think I can say we all do remember a time when a desktop was actually the top of a desk as opposed to a machine that may be running on top of that desk, and a laptop being actually a description of the top of one's lap as opposed to a device that might be perched there to enable communications and computing capability. And so we all know of how technology has changed in our lifetimes. We know technology will continue to change. So there's very much the stated intent, at least at this time, for the county to stay out of owning any of the material that will enable broadband, and merely being there to connect the dots between our communities that need additional broadband and those companies that can provide it, so that, yeah, we can all benefit from this new essential de facto utility that has become so important for us in recent years. With all of that said, Mr. Chair, I do have a motion, if it approves the board, to approve a resolution describing a potential to reestablish Douglas County's legal authority to provide advanced services, high-speed internet, cable television services, and/or telecommunication services in partnering with public or private sector providers, calling an election on November 8th, 2022, for the consideration of such proposal and setting the ballot title and ballot question for the election.
I might have heard wrong. I thought the first word in the first sentence you said was potential, and it's proposal. I might have heard that wrong. I just want to make sure that's clear. It's a proposal.
Apologies if I
could be wrong.
Misstated. Correction noted, and please consider that a part of the motion.
Thank you, and I'll second that motion.
So there's a first and second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? So I'll add a couple of comments. First, phenomenal gratitude to Holly Carroll and staff for the great work over many years, frankly, digging into this issue, looking closely at this important proposal and helping us move this along to today's business meeting. I'll just say that we know that high-speed internet is the fourth utility. And no doubt during the pandemic, throughout COVID, we saw a lot of our citizens, particularly those that were isolated in the rural communities, able to work from home and access their places of employment remotely. We know that most of Douglas County is served, but many portions of the county are underserved in terms of that high-speed broadnet reliability. It's also a significant traffic solution. If people don't have to go to the tech center or another location along I-25 to get to their place of business, that alleviates our traffic corridors. So we have been longtime proponents of advancing high-speed internet. I would just echo my support and comments for George's particular statement around us staying out of the business of providing high-speed internet, but partnering well with the private sector to deliver that fourth utility. So again, I do support the motion. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries 3-0. Thank you, Holly. So with that, we'll move on to item B on our regular agenda, which is an intergovernmental agreement for $300,000 between the City of Castle Pines and the Board of County Commissioners for the construction of a regional disc golf course. Steve Schultz presenting for staff. Hi, Steve.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good afternoon. Steve Schultz here representing staff. Here today to present to you an IGA for partnership funding in the amount of $300,000 for a disc golf course in Castle Pines. This was a request from Castle Pines, and the project includes a parking lot, a drainage that needs to be crossed to account for the 100-year flood, amenities at the site, and a trailhead for users to take advantage of this. The site is 31 acres. In the presentation given to us by representatives from Castle Pines, this is one of the fastest growing sports in the United States. There are sites around the metro area that see upward of 12,000 rounds played a year, and that's not just one person coming through for a round, that's a group of people. So those of you not familiar with the game of disc golf, it is similar to golf in nature where you tee off from a box or a pad in this instance, and you try to throw the frisbees and get it into the basket in the fewest amount of throws. So the total cost for this project is $650,000, and this was presented to the Parks Advisory Board on March 7th of 2022 and voted unanimously for recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners for consideration for approval. The planned fund for this is the Park Sales and Use Tax dollars, Fund 255, and we are partnering and funding only. There will be no long-term maintenance or ownership responsibility for the county. So here's a view of the site. As you can see, it's on Hess Road, just outside of Reuter Hess Reservoir. Zoomed in view a little bit, provides for an overview of how the course will lay out. And again, the trailhead alignment down there on the bottom of the screen. Here is a rendering of what the trailhead will look like. And it'll be kind of hard to see, but there's going to be shelters, some bike racks, some things of that nature, restroom facility, and some fences. And then here is actually the view from some different vantage points as it sits over here on this piece of property. So at the end of this, with the staff recommendation being that the commissioners approve the IGA of $300,000 towards the construction of the regional disc golf course. I also have Mayor Ingerman here from Castle Pines, as well as Council Member Hudson for any comments that the board would like to hear. So that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much, Steve. And I always want to acknowledge when we have our distinguished guests from other municipalities joining us. So thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Roger, for joining us. We certainly appreciate when Castle Pines is present with us. I'd also like to acknowledge Tara Radloff, the new head of the Metro District in Castle Pines as well. Thank you all for being with us today. Did you have any additional comments for us? Okay, yes, please.
Well, thank you for considering this today, and the community is very excited to get started with this, and we hope with your approval this evening that we're breaking ground in October. And we've also approached the community and asked them to come up with names for the park, so it's more than just the regional golf course, disc golf course. The community came up with about 25 names. Our Parks and Rec Board narrowed it down to 10, and then council picked one, and it's going to be now the Pronghorn Park and Regional Disc Golf Course for the name of it. And I would love for you guys, once we have the park open, to join us for a round of disc golf. And thank you for this consideration, and thank you for letting us to participate in this funding source as well. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mayor. And if you could sit tight, our board might have some comments or questions for you, but I'm surprised that the George Teal Golf Course did not make it to the top of the list, I guess. Second or third, right?
One of our requirements was it was no one's name. It had to be something out of nature.
Got it. Sorry, buddy. So any questions for either staff or our distinguished guests?
Mayor, thank you for being here. I've had someone ask me a question. If anyone can use this, or it's only going to be for residents, if there will be a charge, and how will people be able to register to sign up for a round?
It's going to be open to anyone, and there is no charge, and you just show up and find out if there's anyone already on the course, and then you make your way feed into the course. not quite like golf, so it should be a little bit more open so you don't have to sign up. If we get so many residents and people participating that we need to have a sign up, then we'll look at another situation.
Thank you, Mayor.
Further questions or comments for staff or our guests?
No questions.
Well, I would just add, the county is able to partner because of citizens who approved our open space parks natural resources measure many years ago, several decades ago. And for parks in particular, it provides several $1 million annually for us to be able to partner with our distinguished municipalities. This is a perfect example of that partnership. And I'd really like to acknowledge the leadership of Steve Schultz, who's really continuing to grow and expand and build upon the successes that we've seen in the Parks Department. The statistic that I'm always reminded of by Steve is that we have 3 million visitors on an annual basis to our Douglas County and area parks, and about 5,000 events are planned there. So I think we're really passionate about that funding source and appreciate your involvement. At this time, let me open it up for any citizen comment. Is there any citizen comment in the room? Okay, Troy, do we have any citizen comment online for this agenda item?
Thank you, Commissioner Layden. I have no online comment.
Okay, thank you, Troy. And with that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion and or a motion.
I just do have one comment. I think there's kind of been some bristled feelings because Lone Tree and Castle Pines don't get shareback funds from our open space tax money. So this isn't something that the county had to do, but the county is a good partner with everybody who lives in our community. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that we didn't have to do this, but the county believes in partnerships, and we understand you're not part of the shareback program now, but you are. So thank you for bringing this forward, Mayor.
Thank you.
Further items from the board?
I do have a motion to approve an intergovernmental agreement for $300,000 between the City of Castle Pines and the Board of County Commissioners for the construction of a regional disc golf course.
I do think this is a reasonable expense for, a kind of a neat amenity, and of course, continuing a neat and profitable partnership between the City of Castle Pines and Douglas County. So I will be happy to second.
So we have a first and second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries 3-0. Thank you, and congratulations, Castle Pines. See you soon. With that, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is item 4C, Douglas County Stormwater Ordinance Revisions, Ordinance number O-022-001. Ryan Adrian presenting for staff. Hi, Ryan.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Ryan Adrian, representing Public Works Engineering. Today we'll be presenting several minor updates to the Douglas County Stormwater Ordinance. A little bit of background. Let me get this in the right view. I apologize. So a little bit of background. The Stormwater Ordinance was originally adopted in 2009 and has been amended on several occasions since. The purpose of the Stormwater Ordinance is to provide an enforcement mechanism for the Douglas County GESC manual, illicit discharge requirements, and for operation and maintenance of stormwater management facilities. So why are we going through this update? There was judicial reform in Colorado which changed Class 2 petty offenses to civil infractions. Additionally, Cherry Creek Reservoir Control Regulation 72 underwent a rulemaking hearing this year in 2022, which resulted in changes to citations in the ordinance requiring ordinance amendment. A little bit about the ordinance approval process. Today is the first reading, August 23rd. Next, we will post the full text of the ordinance in Douglas County News Press at least 10 days prior to final approval. And the second reading and final approval is proposed for September 20th public hearing. And this is the first reading. It is the title only. Douglas County Stormwater Ordinance regarding grading, erosion and sediment control, operation and maintenance of stormwater management facilities, and illicit discharge detection and elimination. And that concludes the presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ryan, for that presentation. Any questions for staff?
Ryan, you helped me on the Chatfield Watershed Authority, and you are always so knowledgeable about this, things that I think are complicated. So thank you for everything you've done to make sure we are up to speed. And then I'm going to shift to the attorney. Do we have a motion for approval today since this is just first reading?
Thanks for catching that, Commissioner. No, the potential motion in front of you to approve or deny is not correct. So today, if you're comfortable with the changes identified by Mr. Ryan, you will advance this to second reading when you will make a final decision. So the decision today is to advance it to second reading.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
Further questions for staff?
No questions.
So Ryan, do you happen to have a copy of the red line? I saw some highlighted portions in the packet.
I do.
Okay.
I can provide 3 copies and bring them to Lance. Give me 1 second.
You know, in the interest of not delaying us today, let me ask the attorney, we can certainly revisit the red lines in the second reading, correct?
Absolutely. You are not approving this in final form today. You're just advancing it for that opportunity.
Okay. I would just say maybe if you're able to include that in the packet and circulate that for our review, that would be helpful. But I would echo previous comments from the board that you have done a phenomenal job of advising me on the Cherry Creek Basin Water Quality Authority. You serve as an alternate there, and you and I are often texting on the fly in those meetings as you provide technical information. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Any further comments from the board? Okay. Let me open it up for any citizen comment. Is there any citizen comment in the room on this agenda item, either in the room or online?
Commissioner, I have no online comment.
Okay, thank you, Troy. And with that, I'll close citizen comment and open it up to the board for any further discussion or a motion to advance this particular revision to second reading.
You know, here at the county level, ordinances are very rare, but at the municipal level, and where I served for 6.5 years here with the town of Castle Rock, ordinances are very commonplace. So I do have a motion to approve the Douglas County Stormwater Ordinance revisions, ordinance number O-022-011 on first reading.
And Commissioner, for clarification, that is to advance it to second reading, correct?
No, Counselor. It is to approve it on first reading, which then advances it to second reading under Colorado state law.
Not a requirement for counties, but I understand.
So is this a valid motion for me to second? Because it's not what you advised us.
It will accomplish the same purpose. It is absolutely fine.
Second.
Okay, so we have a first and second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that item will be advanced to second reading. With that, we'll move on to our last item in our regular agenda for today, which is a memorandum of understanding between Douglas County and the Douglas County Community Foundation to administer the Philip S. Miller Grant. Kim Smith from staff. Hi, Kim.
Hi. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kim Smith representing Community Services staff. The request before you today is to approve the Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, between Douglas County and the Douglas County Community Foundation, transferring administration of the Philip S. Miller Grant to DCCF for a 3-year period.
The Philip S. Miller Trust is the legacy of Douglas County businessman and philanthropist Philip Simon Miller and his wife Jessie. They established the trust and named 9 beneficiaries to receive an annual cash distribution from income generated by the trust upon their deaths. As one of the beneficiaries, Douglas County established the Philip S. Miller Grant Program, or PSM, to administer funds received from the trust. Throughout the years, Douglas County staff has been responsible for overseeing the grant process. The Douglas County Community Foundation submitted a request to administer the PSM grant program. The Community Foundation reasoned that administering this grant, along with their grant resources, would provide a stronger impact for the nonprofit community to continue to meet ongoing resident needs. The application was discussed with the Board of County Commissioners at a work session, and staff was requested to draft an MOU between the county and the Community Foundation. The primary purpose of the MOU is to establish guidelines regarding the transfer of trust funds and oversight of the Philip S. Miller Grant Program for a 3-year period beginning with 2022 funds. The board may reevaluate the MOU terms at the conclusion of the 2024 program year. Grant proposals providing services and outcomes that address self-sufficiency, at-risk youth, suicide prevention, senior programming, and gaps in medical and mental health services will continue to be prioritized at the direction of the board. DCCF will assume the annual administration of the Miller Grant, including receiving and reviewing grant applications from local nonprofit organizations, providing the board with proposed funding recommendations and subsequent reporting. The board retains decision-making authority of the grant and will approve annual funding recommendations and distribute grant awards. Staff recommends approval of the MOU between Douglas County and the Douglas County Community Foundation by the Board of County Commissioners, transferring administration of the grant program to the DCCF for a 3-year period as it complies with county approval standards and policies. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And we do also have Justin Vaughn, who is the chair of the DCCF board, and also several other board members who are present if you have any questions.
Kim, thank you so much for that presentation. And the distinguished guests continue with Chairman of the Board, Justin Vaughn. I see Jim Huffman in the audience as well as Amy Sherman, Terry Wiebold, James Holmes, and Tara Radloff. I hope I didn't miss anybody, but I have the pleasure and honor of serving on that board as well, and you all do a remarkable job with the Community Foundation. Let me ask, does the board have any comments or questions either for our guests or for staff? Sure, please.
Hi, thank you, Board of Commissioners. I did want to take a moment. You have already identified the board members who I wanted to honor as well, and Tracy Ingerman, the mayor, is here with us as well, who is on our board. We've assembled a board of business leaders, civic leaders, community development individuals, and just a top-notch group. We look forward to continuing to serve Douglas County. We know that certainly this is the best county in the United States, and credit goes to our county commissioners as well as to our community. But we still have needs. Sometimes those needs go hidden, and we are absolutely committed to vetting our nonprofit partners, to assisting the county commissioners as a good partner to our county, and continuing to work with just a phenomenal board. Mike Wade, our executive director, apologizes that he could not be here today. He is having a tooth replaced, so all things being equal, I am blessed to be here in his stead, and we are just thankful for the opportunity to assist and honor Philip S. Miller and partner with the county to administer those funds. So I'm available to answer any questions.
Justin, thank you for that, and thank you for your leadership. Any questions for staff or for Justin?
I have none.
No questions.
Okay, maybe sit tight for a moment, Justin. Let me open it up now for any citizen comment on this item. Are there any citizen comments either in person or online with regard to this agenda item?
Commissioner, I have no online comments.
Okay, thank you, Troy. With that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion and or a motion.
Thank you. I do have some discussion. So years ago, when I was a new state trooper with my training officer, Ed Rush, we were driving down Wilcox Street, and he pointed out a gentleman walking down the street, and he goes, "That's Mr. Miller. You need to know who he is." And he went on to tell me stories about all the wonderful things that Mr. Miller had done for our community. And he pointed out the bank and said, "That's his bank." And he got my training officer got a loan one time from Mr. Miller when he first moved here. And he went in expecting to sign a bunch of paperwork, and Mr. Miller just put his hand out and said, "That's how we do business here." So I think it was maybe 3 years ago, we had Debbie Bullbolts here, who had written this book about Mr. Miller, and she told us wonderful stories about Mr. Miller. Her father had worked for Mr. Miller, so she grew up knowing Mr. Miller and his wife, whose name was Jessie, but she went by Jerry. And so when I became a commissioner and found out that we got to distribute along with others, and I'm going to read the list of everybody that he left his estate, over $33 million. He owned the property where Plum Creek Golf Course is now. That's where his ranch was. He raised cattle, and he had the foresight, knowing that they had no children, to set up a trust. And this is how he has his trust distributed. So Children's Hospital gets 20%. The Shriners Hospital gets 20%. Town of Castle Rock gets 20%. Douglas County government gets 20%. 4% to Douglas County High School students for scholarships. 2% to the Castle Rock Fire Department. 2% to the Douglas County 4-H Council. And the final 2% goes to the Douglas County Fair Association. So you can tell where his heart was. He was very civic-minded, but he cared about kids. And as a commissioner, it has always been an honor to me to work through staff, look at the applications, and make the decisions on how this money was going to be dispersed. It's a responsibility and an honor that I believe was given to the commissioners, and that's why I'll be voting no on this, because I think it's inappropriate for us to be outsourcing this honor and responsibility. Thank you.
Further discussion from the board.
You bet. Commissioner Thomas makes a number of very good points. And if we hearken back to what Douglas County was, to what Castle Rock was at the time of Phil Miller's death, how he decided to spend his money and see it spent after his passing is telling. He did give to Children's Hospital, an existing medical service provider in the Denver region, even at that time. He did give to Shriners. Again, something that goes all the way back 50 years before his death, if I'm doing the math in my head correctly. It really is my belief, and this struck me like a lightning bolt when this was proposed by former Mayor Mike Wade to the board to have the Community Foundation manage the dispersals of the Philip S. Miller Fund on behalf of the county. That, if we had a Douglas County Community Foundation at the time, well, first of all, if it existed at the time of Phil Miller's death, it's probably because Phil Miller would have created it. If it was present at the time of his death, I actually do believe the Community Foundation would be entrusted with this responsibility. The fact that the Community Foundation is a recent construction, a recent founding here, is really quite immaterial. And they were immaterial in my decision to support this move. We heard from Mr. Vaughn, and we've heard from you often with the things that you envision and you work with your board in order to do for Douglas County with this fund. We've heard from, again, former Parker Mayor Mike Wade, the current executive director. And actually, I have a great deal of confidence in this being a really good move, in this being a very good use of these funds. And again, if the Community Foundation existed at the time of Phil Miller's death, number one, he probably would have founded it. But number two, I do believe he would have made it a beneficiary instead of Douglas County government.
Thank you for those comments, Commissioner Teal. And certainly it's of significant value to the county that you frequently and often support our community leaders and organizations that mean so much to our community. And I know I already acknowledged Mayor Ingerman, but it's true you're wearing multiple hats today. And I think that's one of the beauties of the Community Foundation is that we have elected leadership from every municipality on that board, particularly our mayors, including Mayor Ingerman. But in addition to that, we have C-suite donors, executives, partners in the private sector that have really identified the Community Foundation as the place to invest their time and their resources to have impact. I'd like to specifically call out three individuals in the room today, and that's Amy Sherman, Justin Vaughn, and Jim Huffman, who have served on the Community Foundation board for as long as I have and probably a lot longer. It is due to their leadership, foresight, and commitment to this foundation that we are here today. As much as I value history, my goal is not to live in the past, but to focus on where we're headed into the future. And I just wanted to identify a couple of key statistics for you all. We received the mid-year report for the Community Foundation, and just in a year, they hired their first ever executive director, had the most successful fundraising event in Douglas County Community Foundation history, granted the largest amount in any single DCCF granting period. They raised funds allowing the foundation to grant more in a 12-month period than the previous 5 years combined. And these are just a few of the numbers. I mean, the number of nonprofits that are currently supported by the foundation, it's 315. The amount raised for the Douglas County nonprofits during Colorado Gives Day was $1.6 million. So again, the level of impact that we're seeing from this Community Foundation is exponential. And we also have a lot of fun. It's a good group, and it's almost lightning in a bottle how well we all get along and I think enjoy each other's company. So I am really excited about this particular agenda item today. And what it really is it's a vote of confidence. In my mind, the Douglas County Community Foundation is the Red Cross of Douglas County. We often hear about what is the proper role of government from the dais. Well, the proper role of government isn't to administer nonprofit grants. But I will say, and I want to acknowledge Kim Smith and Jen Eby for the amazing work that they've done with staff for many years to administer those grants. I think that'll continue in partnership with the Community Foundation. The buck lies with us, and so ultimately those recommendations from the Community Foundation will be looked at and reviewed by this board. And I know that when we provide those checks to the community, we will do that together in collaboration with you all. So really thankful for you all being here today. Let me just ask if there is, did we already do citizen comment on this item? I believe we did. So we are in discussion now. And let me just ask if there's any further comment or discussion from the board and or a motion.
Well, if it does please the board, I will be happy to make a motion to approve a memorandum of understanding between Douglas County and Douglas County Community Foundation to administer the Philip S. Miller Grant.
I'll second that.
So there's a first and second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
And that passes 2-1. Thank you very much for that. With that, we'll move on to item 5, other business. Do we have any other business today? And item 6 is our county manager and his county manager report. Any items to discuss? Okay, and then finally, commissioner comments. Are there any commissioner comments?
I have none.
Only commissioner comment that I would make is it seems, Mr. Chair, that our communications department would like to get a big picture probably of the board and a number of the members of the Douglas County Community Foundation who are present.
Thank you, Vice Chair Teal. I appreciate that. So what I'm going to do is I will adjourn our business meeting, and then if every member of the Community Foundation would join us up near the dais, we'll take a photo. Thank you very much, everyone.